There we are. What is up, everybody? This is a super special episode of our Tears of the Kingdom podcast, as I am joined by a very surprised guest here. We are live a week before the game's out with a dude that has played Tears of the Kingdom. We have a special visitor who is, he could be playing the game right now. That's why he's looking over there. He's probably playing the game as we speak. So you are here with a real human being. Not a Reddit post, not a 4chan user, but a real person that has the game.
I broke out of jail, so I'm on the run. It's been good. It's been good, man. How are you? How are you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I'm really excited for this week. I'm really excited based on all the news. I'm really excited about that patch. We can touch on that a little bit. That's good to see. No Pokemon Scarlet situation here. But welcome one and all to Kids of the Kingdom, episode number 4. It's just Pat and I back at you. He's our guest because he has played Tears of the Kingdom. How many hours would you say thus far? Do you have a guesstimate?
Probably 10.
Okay.
Probably 9 to 10. Yeah.
It's a good chunk of the game. It's a little more than they got to play in the 70-minute preview. So we're going to try to avoid spoilers here, and not just story spoilers, but we're going to try to avoid a bunch of just even like the spoilers that have been out there on Reddit. We're going to talk much more in general terms and much more on the enjoyment, the excitement, the comparison to Breath of the Wild, and touch on some of the things that I think are very evident from existing gameplay, right? Like we've seen Ultra Hand, we've seen Recall, so we know how those work. I guess we'll just begin with, I want to know, I've watched your videos, and you said that you thought this one started off incredibly well. So without going into details of how it started off, if you played Breath of the Wild, do you think there's like a very nice big payoff for the intro and where this game begins?
So yeah, again, we're not doing spoilers. The game starts off in more of a cinematic type of way. Like I would say the first hour of the game, very minimal gameplay. So if you like story, I know that was a big complaint with Breath of the Wild, but yeah, it starts very cinematic. There's not going to say what happens, but sets up the story very nicely. And then you end up on a starting area similar to the Great Plateau, the Great Sky Islands, they call it in this game. And it's the same formula as the Great Plateau. There are, things to acquire your powers that you need to do. And I'm trying, Zach.
You're doing a good job. No, I think that's good.
Yeah, so you acquire all your powers right away. And I gotta say, it's a little more overwhelming than I think Breath of the Wild. Breath of the Wild was very easy. Like, maybe it was just the build up to that game, but the powers came very naturally, stopping things and magnesis and things like that. Like, this one I think is much more involved. And I said this in my video before, but I think Ultra Hand is going to be what a lot of people struggle with. Because you have to rotate things very specifically and connecting things and building things. And it's very finicky, but once you get the hang of it, it's not terrible, but I feel struggling a little bit.
Yeah, the controls I've seen a lot about how it is, even the previews are talking about how there's a lot to sort of pick up at once. Good to know that they do sort of a slow rollout. Do you feel 10 hours in that the controls are solid, or do you feel like it's still like a cumbersome kind of, holding you back?
It's good. I think everything like does what it's supposed to do. Sometimes you forget that you have certain powers. Sometimes you'll be, going somewhere and you forget that you can. Oh, I can just zoom up to the top of a cave. Like I have that power. But yeah, there's a lot of trial and error in this game, which I really like. So it forces you to create things and solve problems your way. And it doesn't necessarily punish you, but you'll know very quickly you're doing it wrong. So I really enjoyed that.
So we have the abilities. We have Ultra Hand, which allows you to move and connect things. We have Fuse, which is specifically for weapons and shields and bows and things of that sort. We have Recall, which lets us rewind, and then we have Ascend, which lets us go through the sky. Of those abilities, which is your favorite and least favorite so far?
My favorite is probably Fuse.
Oh yeah,
I really like it because you can make weapons more durable, and like that alone is a win. Like taking a small little stick that a bokoblin drops and fusing it with, a metal ball or something. Like it does makes a pretty big difference. Um, so that's my favorite. I think Ultra Hand obviously is the star here, though. You can pick up any sort of item and make vehicles and stuff. I made a few vehicles. You can run over bokoblins and stuff. It's like super fun.
Yeah, I cannot wait for the vehicle creation. And I think I haven't really seen much about it, so there's no spoiler here at all. But how big can those vehicles get? We said it last week, or with Bo, I believe. Like, how can you make truly massive creations? It does seem like you're quite limited by those battery charges, and there was a hint of that in Aonuma's gameplay presentation of like, okay, this battery goes quick. And as far as I understand, the more fans or the more rockets you have, the quicker that battery goes. Yep. Therefore, like, do the vehicles, like, are you at a point where the vehicles feel like a vehicle, or does it feel like a limited time ride, like you get on and you get off?
Yeah, it's a little bit of it does feel limited because, like you said, the charges and stuff, but there are actually zonai charges that you can basically activate to make those last longer. I think that's gonna come into play. But no, I mean, vehicles to me, I mean, I just maybe haven't come across puzzles and stuff yet, but they do seem like for fun. I think I could play the entire game without making a single vehicle at this point. Like,
really,
the ones that go up, like a hot air balloon type thing, like those are necessary. But
how are you gonna get across like the lakes that they show in like the trailers and stuff?
The boats and the ones that bring you higher, but like I'm talking like cars, and like you can make basically cars that you can drive, but those seem like memes.
Yeah,
but yeah, the other ones are necessary.
Yeah, the flying stuff seems like it's going to be the most beneficial to, because the whole game seems like it's about getting high and then flying around. Scope wise, like, so we do have these sky islands, and not talking about much about them, but just the scenes in the trailers where Link is just like, flying down. Does that actually translate in the game? Like, is that just a cutscene, or are you actually really having an opportunity to fly above the Hyrule and kind of guide yourself?
So what they showed in the trailer was actually a cutscene. It's pretty early on.
Okay.
But yeah, you do have pretty much free range. Like if you drop from a giant height, it'll tell you like dive or get out your glider or something like that. But dude, it feels pretty seamless. Like what they showed in that 10-minute preview when he went, from the skyline down, that translates 100%. Like that was real. There was no crazy stuff going on. So.
And we can bring it in now. Like, they just dropped a new patch. I know I made a video about it last night. You made a video recently. And the reports are, we'll get your live take, but the reports are that it does make a significant improvement. This is a 1.1 patch that you can get with your preload. So when the game unlocks on Thursday night, you'll be ready, Friday morning, whatever, you'll be ready to go. You said that this patch, you agree, like that it is bumping that performance a bit?
Yeah, I have seen a difference. The only thing I will say that I said in my video is the most amount of like hiccups and stuff was at the very beginning area, which I have not gone back to, so I haven't seen like the difference.
So weird that they would have their opening area be one that struggles.
Yeah, and if you remember Breath of the Wild, the Great Plateau was like that too. There was performance issues there, like very early on. I think
very weird.
Yeah. So that was where a lot of the hiccups were happening. Also with Ultra Hand and stuff. I wouldn't say that the patch has done a significant like difference. I haven't seen there's less stutters now and stuff like that, but we're playing this on an older piece of hardware. Like it's gonna happen. It's like not just because this is the sequel to Breath of the Wild, it's gonna be seamless. You're still gonna have your hiccups and stuff.
You don't have the 4K 60 that those PC emulators apparently are working towards getting. Overall, then, like, it's, I mean, this is hard because, again, we don't want to spoil anything for people. We obviously, can't go into specific details. We're not even touching on the big questions that I think, based on leaks, you and I know the answers to, but just out of respect, we're not going to really kind of divulge those. But can you give us just like a little bit of like, is all the hype worth it? Like, do we think that people are gonna feel relieved or good about this thing that's finally about to come out in 5 days?
Dude, I think so. I've been playing not a ton of time. I mean, 9-10 hours is not a lot in the grand scheme of things. But I will say already, a lot of my complaints with Breath of the Wild, which were very few, have been fixed. It's very cinematic. The story is there. The characters are. I feel like there's more memorable characters already. We're seeing early glimpses of just great characters. I could just see people are gonna have their favorites already. Visually, the game looks a tiny bit better. The water texture is something I noticed right away. The hype is real though, Zach. This, to me, I said in my video, and you said this before. You're like, Pat, are you okay? Game of the decade, dude. This is
game of the decade.
I'm kind of worried what this does in terms of Breath of the Wild's legacy, though. Like, Breath of the Wild will always be a great game no matter what. But besides the story, like, what's the reason to go back now?
Well,
like, it's just... It seems like a better deluxe version.
The big thing is, right, the powers being dramatically different. But are you saying that you feel like those powers would feel not very powerful if you went back?
It's unique. I like that they kept the powers in Breath of the Wild, and some of the enemies that were in Breath of the Wild are no longer in Tears of the Kingdom. So I think there are still reasons to go back, but it just feels so much more fleshed out. The world, they've added a bunch of new stuff. There was a lot of debate, about like how much they actually changed. I would say like 80% of the world has changed, which is a big number, dude.
Yeah.
And I don't know, you're just gonna want to explore this land again, and towns have changed, characters have changed. It's really cool to see other characters from Breath of the Wild come back, and you can see like the updated version of them and stuff. So yeah. Dude, they knocked it out of the park. Well, that's great to hear. Great.
I mean, I would have not expected anything less, but it is good to hear confirmation from a real live human being that I know, and better than ACNH.
Stop it. Listen, they're both very different games.
Do you have to load out of your Sky Island and take a plane to get to someone else's Sky Island?
You don't.
Does it kick you out if there's too many people on the Sky Island?
There's not as much loading. They're very different games.
I saw a clip. I haven't played Animal Crossing in a long time, but I saw a clip of when the whole game pauses when someone leaves your island, and I was like, I cannot believe we did that. I cannot believe that was a thing that we had to sit through for so long. Okay, so one thing I've seen people sort of complain about that you have honestly said kind of the opposite is, and we have someone in the chat asking the goofy question, is it a DLC? I think that's obviously not the question, not a thing, but not enough enemy variety and not enough like weapon variety, not enough differential sort of from those standpoints to Breath of the Wild. Have you felt that, or are you experiencing enough enemy weapon armor differentiation?
I have seen more newer enemies than returning ones. So
whoa,
if that tells you any, I've seen more newer enemies than returning ones. Like your bokoblins are in there, right?
Yeah.
Like, and honestly, I'm trying to think. Oh, the bokoblins, the choo-choo, those things are back. The skeleton boys are back. But I've seen, newer versions of those also, like, bokoblins. This has been released already, so I'm not leaking anything. But there are bokoblins in armor now. Like, there's just different, layers of that. But there's a lot more sky enemies. There's enemies in the depths and things like that. Like, I just think that people are going to really enjoy it. And also, the armor and the weapons, there's a ton of new things. Weapons that have added abilities. One of the really cool things that I like that people are going to enjoy, when you're facing enemies, they have fused weapons on them.
Yeah.
Which I didn't think was going to happen. So like you might face someone that has like a staff that's fused with a fire weapon already, and it's like, and when you pick it up, it's like you can unfuse it and stuff. So that was really cool. Armor, there's really, I can't talk about this, but there's really, really cool armor that has additional effects depending on maybe what weather you're in or what conditions you're in. So there's a whole new just layer of gameplay and strategy here that just isn't in Breath of the Wild.
Are you feeling like the Ultra Hand and like the building, the whether it's vehicles or just putting things together. Is that having an effect like in the world, or is it restricted to like the puzzles? Like, are you ever just like, I'm gonna guess the answer is no, because you were saying they're only kind of needed for specific things. But are you using Ultra Hand to just like, hey, I feel like I'm gonna build a flying rocket thing that I can, like, are they
That's
coming in
tough.
handy?
They are, especially like all the well, I can't say that, but there are puzzles that you 100% need the
Right.
powers for.
Right.
There's a lot of instances where you need the powers for. In terms of like building vehicles and stuff, right now it's just to get to different heights and just different places that you normally couldn't do. You don't have Rivali's Gale anymore, which sucks, but like there are other things that you can kind of, like, for example, so we all seen the fans, right? You can actually put a fan on the ground, activate it, and then use that gust to get to new places. So there are things that you can do that I don't even know if Nintendo intended, but
You're breaking the game already before it's even out.
dude, I am not. People are going to break this game 100%. There's so much like freedom that you can do. So
Let's get a little deeper here. So, people have compared, I guess, the nature of Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom to Ocarina and Majora's Mask, just because of the sort of sequel nature that most Zelda games don't, partake in. Majora's Mask, though, feels like a dramatically different game. I understand that it's on the same engine, it's on the same hardware. Does this feel dramatically different, or does this feel like it picks up where Breath of the Wild left off? It's improving, but it is more of like a Breath of the, like, is it Breath of the Wild 2, or is it Tears of the Kingdom?
controversial take here. It does feel like Breath of the Wild Deluxe in the sense where it's the same game. If you gave the controller to someone who has only played Breath of the Wild, they're going to pick it up right away. Controls are the same, mechanics are the same. But I just think it's just a better version. Like the story is there. It's Breath of the Wild, you kind of have to search for the story, whereas this game, like, the story is like you can't run from it. And the experiences just, it feels like a sequel, man. It's like Guardians of the Galaxy 3,
Have you
Like,
seen it yet?
I have not.
Okay.
I have not.
I have been on such a sadness since I saw that movie. Like, I didn't know I was that attached to the characters, but something about watching all the movies in sequence in a short period of time, a couple days, I was like, man, I can't believe Drax is done, and Gamora's done, and Rocket, Groot. Like, they've said that Star-Lord Chris Pratt is going to come back, but other than that, there's like, it's kind of the end of an era. And it's weird because we are going to reach a point where, like, the Marvel movies are kind of all end of an era. Like, all those characters at some point are going to be done, and then what happens? I mean, they probably have plans to go phase 7, phase 8, phase 9, but at some point the mystique around the Marvel movies will kind of just fade, and this will be a part of our lives, and then the MCU will be out of view. Like
We'll
that.
have to restart again, and
Yeah.
then DC will take over finally.
Oh, well, they got James Gunn, so that's, as I like Guardians a lot, so that gives me some hope. But that Flash trailer is a little. You seen that one?
Yeah, I'm not. Flash isn't one of my favorites.
Yeah.
A lot of people saying like, okay, he just said like DLC confirmed. Like, when I say that, it's just you feel at home with the controls. You feel at home with some of the items and enemies and stuff. But you guys are gonna play it. By the way, this is the last weekend we won't have it. It's pretty crazy. That's nice to
Enjoy
think about,
it. Get outside. High five your
Yep.
family.
But no, it definitely feels like a sequel. I was worried that it was only gonna feel like, oh, they added Sky Islands and things like that, but it does feel like a true sequel, I will say.
Well, that's good. I'm trying to think of what else we can ask you that isn't going to spoil it. There's quite a lot of spoilers going on in my chat, which is unfortunate. But I will say that some people have this game and a lot of people do not. So we don't know if they're actually correct or not. So the caves. You made a big deal about the caves in one of your videos. They basically just showed off a little bit of caves, so we understand that they're there. What are you finding in these caves that are making them super fun for you?
Dude, caves in Tears of the Kingdom is my favorite part of Tears of the Kingdom so far.
That's
so
wild to
basically,
me.
think of Breath of the Wild, but like a bunch of these added caves, and like who doesn't want to go in a cave, right? Caves are fun. They're spooky, mysterious. So what I said in my video, there's nearly 400 caves in this game. It's been out there, okay? Now, Zach, here's the wild thing. There is one thing in particular. I won't say what it is. You have to collect this item in every cave. It's in every cave.
Can you tell us what it is?
It's an item. You basically, an enemy drops it, basically.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But they're in every single cave.
Mm-hmm.
So, dude, we know Koroks are back.
Yeah.
There was 900 Koroks in Breath of the Wild. We don't know how many there is in Tears of the Kingdom. Let's just say there's 900. Let's just say they bring back 900.
Okay.
900 Koroks, 400 cave items.
Too much. Way too much.
That is a lot of gameplay. But so in these caves, it can range. There's usually, it's kind of like an enemy camp. Although I have seen some empty caves just with like a chest in it. Some of them are smaller. Some of them have multi-layers. Some of them have like multiple layers, waterfalls, like very unique things. The only game I could compare it to is Skyrim. Like Skyrim has a lot of these same sort of, mysterious, I think they call them caves. Yeah, I think they do call them caves in Skyrim. They're just very, very fun to explore. And you're going to want to go in them. It's not just like you're getting this collectible item. I found armor in these. I found weapons in these. Like, they're really cool. And yeah, and it says on the screen, it says like new discovery, sort of like in Breath of the Wild when you went into a shrine or like a different town or whatever. So it'll tell you like you just discovered this cave.
It's marking them on the map.
Yeah.
Yeah. And well, this is such a hard topic because I was going to say, well, they're separate from something else that's sort of similar, but we won't have to we won't have gone in there. Herglet in my chat says we're answering all of the questions within seconds of them thinking of them. So we're doing a good job on that front here. Someone said better than Elden Ring. Very different games. Not even.
I haven't played Elden Ring.
Okay. I fell off Elden Ring after about 20 hours. There's more direction in Tears of the Kingdom, Breath of the Wild, I would say. Elden Ring, like, yes, there is obviously a story, and yes, there obviously is that, but this is much more following a path.
Yeah, that was one of the things. So I made my first video, and I do think Tears of the Kingdom is a harder game than Breath of the Wild. Just the enemies have ramped up. Okay. The amount of challenge has ramped up. The puzzles, I feel like, are tougher. Maybe I'm just getting dumber. I don't know. But what I found out was when you're done with the tutorial area, the initial where you get your powers and stuff, that takes about 2 hours. You have to it tells you to go somewhere. It tells you to go to this town to progress with the story. Mm-hmm. I didn't do that. I was like, hey, let's go back to the Great Plateau and let's see what that looks like. And I just got wrecked. So once I started doing the story and stuff, I got some key items, and the game didn't get easier, but I got stronger, and that was what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of like you can go and explore anywhere you want from the start of the game, after you finish the tutorial, but
sure.
This game seems more linear in the fact that they're pushing you more to the story. They're not saying you can't proceed, but if you don't do the story right away, you're gonna get wrecked.
And you think that that's more than Breath of the Wild? Because Breath of the Wild, you could, once you got off the Great Plateau, you could go, in theory, you could go wherever you wanted as well. You're saying that you think that the enemies are more strategically placed, I guess, to be more difficult further out from the main path.
I mean, I don't know if it was just me, because I literally went the opposite direction of where I was supposed to go. Right. So maybe that was it. I'm sure if you start Breath of the Wild and you go, to the lava Goron area, you're going to get destroyed. But I think the thing that separates itself is, I don't think this is a spoiler. I don't know, maybe a little warning, I guess. But in Breath of the Wild, it seemed like that Great Plateau was confined, and you got the paraglider, right? You got the powers and the paraglider, and it was kind of go ahead.
Right.
In Tears of the Kingdom, you don't get the paraglider right away. You have to do an additional thing to get it. So you can start the game in Hyrule without a paraglider, and it's very, very difficult to progress like that. You have to be very creative to get on cliffs and on rocks and things. So maybe I think that's it. Once you have the paraglider, then things open up. But Yeah, I was having a really tough time without that.
I wonder if some of it is the inclusion of fuse because they expect or understand that you could have access to much stronger weapons earlier on, because like if you find a rusty broadsword and then you fuse it to a big rock, well, now it can do way more. Its attack power is way higher than just that straight up rusty broadsword. So maybe that's some of the enemy difficulty. I have seen some things about like, yeah, like more one shot kills from enemies, more
Oh yeah.
difficulty, earlier inclusion of blue bokoblins, things of that sort. um, Harley, I don't know that there's no enemy scaling now. I think perhaps it was just like Pat said, like he just got off the starting area and then he went the wrong direction, or maybe the right direction depending on how you view it, and and that was kind of the point he put himself in.
Yeah.
The caves. I don't think this is spoiler. The caves don't have like mini bosses or anything, do they?
I can't say whether they do or not, because like they're all pretty much different. There's no like formula to them.
Okay.
Like when you walk in the cave, there's not like 3 enemies there in a chest. Like it's
Yeah.
very different. Some enemies like aren't even in caves. Like I've seen a couple abandoned caves. So I think it's all going to be different. Going back to what you were saying about fusing though, it is true. It's like maybe I wasn't doing the right things with fusing, because when you first start off, they show you the attack level of your weapons. So you can be picking up like weapons that have like 3 attack power or like 2 attack power, but you can fuse a 2 attack power weapon and create a 19 attack power. Like there are items in the game where you can significantly do more damage, but a lot of one-shot kills, a lot of arrows. Like there's enemies that have fused weapons already, so I think that's another bit of the challenge. Is like you never know what they're gonna have or what they're gonna fire at you. So
speaking of firing things, how's that attach the item picking scroll bar? Because we saw that early, in the gameplay demonstration. They showed like, okay, you could pick, the Keese eyeball to home in, or you could pick a fire seed to light something on fire. I'm assuming 10 hours in, you got a pretty long bar. How is that scrolling and choosing mechanic?
I gotta say, for all the good stuff I've been saying about this game, I think this is a mess up on Nintendo's part. So yeah, what Zach is saying is like when you fire an arrow, you can then press up on the D-pad to fuse it with another item, and yeah, you have to scroll through the whole thing just to find. So like, I was at a point where I wanted to shoot an enemy that was in the sky, and I wanted to use the eyeball that tracks it. So I was trying to find I knew I had an eyeball, and it took me a really long time to find it. Now, the good thing is, if I fused an eyeball with an arrow and shot it, the next time I go to fuse another arrow, it'll automatically go to the eyeball. So it's like, that's good, but the menus, yeah.
You got to be D-pad dexterous, it sounds like, because you were talking about with Ultra Hand, the rotation is on the D-pad, and that's a little bit of a brain burner at times. And then we've got the D-pad for attaching on, either throwing an item or attaching onto an arrow. So it does seem like it is a little bit more of a dance on the controller. Is it natural yet though? Like, are you? I mean, I know you said the controls aren't like bad, but has it become one with you? Like, are you able to scroll through that? Do you feel like in combat, basically, it's seamless, or is it like very stuttered and breaking it down?
It's the equivalent of stopping and eating 10 apples and healing. It does kind of mess with the flow, I guess, of the gameplay. The one fix that I would like to see Nintendo do, they're not going to though, is like, if I wanted to make 10 bomb arrows, I should be able to do that. Like there should be a crafting. Yeah. So in this, if I want to make a bomb arrow, I have to fuse the bomb flower with the arrow and then shoot it and then fuse it again and do it. So I think that's one of my biggest complaints, is that doesn't really seem right. The weapon fusing too, I mean, you do have to go through a menu, but you can fuse things that are like naturally in the world too. So
on the weapon degradation side, you were talking about you can fuse things to sort of boost their durability, but once something starts breaking down, can you refuse it? How is that, like,
So you can unfuse it, and then I think you can refuse it with another item. I think you can do that. I don't think it's going to be. There hasn't been a weapon yet where I'm like, oh my god, I want to keep this throughout the
Okay.
game. It seems very disposable.
Mm.
And plus, you want to experiment and try out all these fusions, because
Yeah.
I think that's one of the most, besides the caves. This has been like the best thing. It's like I find a new mushroom or a new item, and I'm like, ooh, I wonder what that would do to an arrow. So I don't think you're gonna want to keep the same weapon, even if they didn't break.
Well, that's part of Nintendo's argument, I think, for weapon degradation is like, hey, we want this to be an experimental game. We don't want you to find a great sword and just keep it. We want you to, absolutely always be switching in and out. And on the one hand, you're not going to have weapons that last long and become, your best friend. But on the other hand, you're going to always have something new. We do have someone in the chat saying that even if you refuse, it does not restore its durability.
Okay.
So if that is the case, I mean, it's nice that you can refuse it to create something different. But if this then sounds like there is no, once something starts going, once it says like, oh, your, short sword is going to break
Which
soon,
makes sense.
You're just out of luck.
Yeah, I haven't really. I think there was only a couple occasions where I unfused something and then refused it with something else. So it's. I don't think it's a mechanic that you would use anyway if it worked like that. Going back to what you were saying, it's odd because on the back of the case, one of the things, it says explore, discover, and then I think the biggest section is create, which is weird for a Zelda game. So they're really pushing that. Yeah, I mean, I think with the fusing and Ultra Hand and stuff, but the vehicles, I really do think that's something silly for Nintendo to throw in. I really like the big, vehicles that you could drive everywhere. It might be later in the game. I think there is a quest later in the game that we saw in the trailers with like the wagon and stuff, but haven't really run across anything that I need to make a truck.
I suppose also like speed running or ways to sort of, get to areas before you're actually intended to get there. There probably will be a lot of cool usages for strange vehicles to, sort of break the structure of the game, especially later in the game. I'm assuming right now, if you're talking about, the batteries still being very difficult to sort of have longevity, once you're able to have longer batteries, maybe that will open up a lot of possibilities as well. Of like, okay, now I can activate this fan for 60 seconds instead of 15 or, whatever the difference is. Chefin wants to know what happens if you fuse two of the same weapon. Have you tried that? Is that even possible?
I think I fused two staffs together. I think Nintendo's actually shown this, that you can make like a longer staff.
Oh yeah, like a sword on a sword.
Yeah, yeah. There's some really weird combinations too. Like you can fuse a staff to like your shield, and I don't even know what that does. I maybe just ups the durability of it, but it looks. You can basically be holding like two staffs essentially.
Because not everything is going to do like it turns into a fire arrow, like, or it turns into a rock hammer. Like there are, I think that's like a misrepresentation of what the game's trying to be. If you think that every single item is going to create some like wholly new item, it does seem like there's a lot based on what you've said. Like there's a lot of like, okay, well, this is a sword with a little more durability, and this is also a sword with a little more durability, and this is also a sword with but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, there are certain things, like, there's, like, Korok leaves and stuff, where if you combine them with a staff, pretty much any weapon, it adds, like, a little gust of wind, which is really, like, I love that. You can add, the ability to freeze enemies, if you combine it with an ice weapon or ice item or something like that. So you can basically make your own elemental weapons, and depending on who you're fighting, that's going to help out significantly. With arrows too, you can create gusts of wind and stuff. So
very nice.
Talking about the menus, a lot of people talking about the menus in my chat. I think the menus are similar to Breath of the Wild, except we now have quick menus. When you're fusing arrows and stuff. So yeah, I think it's if you're looking for like which one is easier to use, I guess it would be Tears of the Kingdom. It's pretty much the same though. You still have your map menus. You can toggle between the different levels of the game and stuff. So I think in terms of the menus, they're pretty similar.
And I don't know really what else they would do. I know we've said like, oh, it's kind of annoying to scroll through all the different options, but besides restricting you to like, oh, here, you can fuse one of these three things. Like, I don't know how else you fix that. But I do think your like favorites idea, I guess in a way going back to the last thing you fuse is sort of their idea of favorites, but it would be nice if you could just, I don't know, tap,
Yep.
ZL to get right back to your favorite
Hmm.
fire arrow combo or whatnot.
There is no auto fuse. People are saying there's auto, like every time you shoot an arrow, it auto fuses. No, you can shoot regular arrows. There's regular arrows in the game. And, I find myself using regular arrows, but if you really want to deal big damage, you're going to want to combine it with bokoblin horns and like whatever you find just to make, some extra damage. But yeah, you can still shoot normal arrows for sure.
Do you think this is a question I personally have? Do you think that there's more like items and parts littered about or that you get out of enemies because of the fact that you can fuse stuff? Like, are they filling up your inventory faster, you think?
I think there seems to be more drops. Yeah, I feel like there's usually like 2 or 3 items per enemy that drop, which kind of seems like one additional, than Breath of the Wild. There are parts like everywhere. You will find like random boards and random rocks everywhere. I feel like you're seeing more of that in this game, which isn't a bad thing. Like you're going to need to fuse to deal some big damage, but yeah, I think there's more item drops for sure.
I was just gonna say, another question is, since Nintendo has no other games coming out, how long can this last? Is this gonna carry you till the till 2024 since they have nothing else?
Dude, 400 caves.
Yeah, geez.
Let's just say
900 Koroks.
900,
Yeah,
900 Koroks, 150 of something else, 6 major something else's. I mean, dude, there's a lot of content in here. I feel like this is triple, if not 4 times as much like his Breath of the Wild. I really do, which is scary because like Breath of the Wild, I feel like you can get a solid 100 hours still being casual. This game, there's probably going to be a couple hundred just playing it casually, like and collectors alone. You're going to want to get these items too.
Yes, no shade to Pikmin 4. I know Pikmin 4 is July 21st. I just, as being a bit hyperbolic, because they have no other.
People are saying there's 1,600 Koroks. I don't know if that's confirmed yet. But I will say that some Koroks give you 2 Korok seeds. So that could be a thing. 16 sounds a lot. Like that sounds like a lot though. I haven't really found a ton if I'm being honest, but that seems like I don't know if that's confirmed. But some Koroks will give you a couple though.
Generous Koroks this time around. Let me ask you this. There's a lot of things that we've seen in the trailers that we don't know what they are. Do you now know what they are? Most of the things in the trailers, do you now know what they are?
Couple things.
Okay.
A couple things. There are still things where I'm like, I don't know what that is. There were a couple things in the trailer that were a little deceiving. I gotta say, there's that one scene where you kind of have like Link kind of looking around and you have sort of what look like guardian arms like in the back of Link. And that's actually just an animation for like there are towers in this game. We all knew that. There are towers in this game. That's actually just an animation of discovering a tower. That's not like a guardian or some weird thing is attacking you. So there's a couple of things like that. There's a few major things where I'm like, oh, that's where that's from. But a lot of it's still a big mystery.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, that's the biggest hope is that we know about Ultra Hand, we know about Recall, we know about Ascent, but I hope that as the game progresses, as you dive deeper, that there's more and more. That was something that I found very cool and continue to find cool about Nintendo's marketing is that they have left a lot up to just you uncover yourself. So I hope that this is a game that, even beyond where you are, 10 more hours in, you're like, oh, I've either new ways to use powers or different things that, weren't as evident before. I hope that the game does find a way to build upon itself. I think there probably is official confirmation out there, but I do feel a little weird about them not bringing back the Breath of the Wild powers. I mean, maybe there is some weird thing where you can't get them, but I guess it's just like, okay, well, what good is Magnesis if you have Ultra Hand? Or, I mean, I know that's from Metal technically, but like, it's effectively a worse version of Ultra Hand, less dexterous. Like it's like Ultra Thumb.
Yeah, and this isn't from me playing, but I don't think those original powers are in there.
Yeah.
However, there are things that are similar to those powers that you can possibly get. But here's the other thing. Not having those original Breath of the Wild powers makes this map even more fun to go back to because a lot of us use Rivali's Gale to get up to that giant rock in Garuda or whatever. Now you don't have that. So it's like, how are you getting there? Are you gonna
Ascend?
Yeah. Well, Ascend, yeah, or you can create.
To me, of all the powers of all I've seen talking to you, like Ascend is the game changer, which I think right now Ascend might not be getting hype because Fuse and Ultra Hand are all the talk, the previews, all the talk, the game. But realistically, from a video game standpoint, how many games do you know where you can just zoom through the ceiling? Like that's just not a thing. It's almost like that's almost like clipping through an area, or like breaking the games that you can out of body fly through the ceiling. That to me is going to be one that I think just like takes a real while to digest. Like, okay, I can just go through the ceiling at any point. So when you're like in the caves, do you just...
You can do that.
Okay, sick.
Most of the caves are like their own separate thing though, where you don't even need Ascend. I don't think I've needed Ascend in the caves yet.
Okay.
It's other puzzles where you're still in Breath of the Wild mode, so you're like, where's that board to like make a ladder to go up? But all you have to do is ascend. And it's like, it does feel like a very, not overpowered, but it's definitely a tool that you're going to want to realize you have. So
I hope it allows them to create like a lot of really interesting structures or platforming type puzzles. We've heard that there's more platforming in this game than Breath of the Wild. And I would imagine that gives them the flexibility to be like, okay, well, maybe Link doesn't have the stamina to get here, but you sure have a sense, so it's okay if you still have low stamina.
People are asking about caves again. There are nearly 400 that have been confirmed, and yes, there is a collectible in every single.
You're gonna show us how to get all of those because you're really you can be the king of this collectible, whatever the heck it is.
I am good. I'm good on that. Just know that you'll know what it is when you get it, basically. And Nintendo, I think the description of the item says like you're gonna want to collect these, or like these are collectible, or something like that. I don't know what they do though yet. I'm not gonna say what they are, but I don't know what you use them for. I don't know who you give them to. I don't know what but I'm collecting them. But that's how you do it.
That's really interesting because I was playing Star Wars Jedi Survivor, the new, Star Wars game, and there are multiple collectibles you get in that game early on that say like, maybe you'll come across someone that knows what to do with this. And it's a little bit of a weird, I don't know how I feel. I don't know if I like that or I hate that, because if it turns out to be something stupid, then I'm collecting these for no reason. But if it turns out to be great, that's really fun. What would have to be the reward for you to collect 1,400 or 1,600 of something? Like, what would you need them to give you?
A better reward than Breath of the Wild, that's for sure. Collecting the 900 Koroks. I think Koroks act the same way, where I haven't seen Hestu yet. Hestu, I don't even know if he's in the game. I think he is. But I think that's how you do it. But man, if people are saying there's 1,200, 1,600, there better be a nice reward there. I'm interested about the caves too. I don't know what you do with those, but if there are 400, I would... Like, what do you think of when you think of a good reward? Like armor?
No, I would like a new power. I know that's not in there, but to collect 1,600 of something, like, that is such an absurd... Even 400. Like, that is such a completionist, like, incredible task. I would want... I mean, maybe it's an armor that gives Link an ability, or, like, I don't know. Maybe it's something that replicates an ability from Breath of the Wild or something, but I would absolutely want something that is game-changing, not just like, oh, I've got the red bandana. Like, that's not...
Yeah.
I know some people feel like that's a badge of honor or whatever, but I would love something to be mechanically affecting, or have a gameplay use.
Yeah, because Skyrim, which by the way is my favorite game of all time, but there's some competition here now. But I remember after big storylines or like big quests or whatever, you would get usually a piece of armor that had an enchantment in it. So like this armor gives you whatever. So I think armor is like the biggest thing, or maybe a weapon. Dare I say that doesn't break?
Okay. That would be game changing. I just feel like, okay, the percentage of players that beat the game is lower than you think it is. And then the percentage of players that collect all the Korok seeds has to be 1% or less, right? Like
I would honestly be fine with an item that literally broke the game.
yeah,
Like
right?
like a high powered air balloon or something. Like I don't know. Like you literally spent so much time get it. Like if I don't know.
Or like
They
a
should just
new device. We know that there's fans, we know there's rockets, something that like you only have access to this, and like you said, it really, you know, what if you want to say break the game or whatever, allows you to do something or accomplish something in a way that, yeah. Here's an interesting take. Harley says, honestly, if there's really 1,600, I don't think it should give you a big reward because it's a ridiculous task, and I don't think they even want you to collect them all.
Interesting. I mean, what do they? That's an interesting point. Do they want you to collect them all? Do they want so many in the world that you increase your, weapon slots? I think that's what it did. Increase your weapon slots.
It's an interesting way to look at it. Like, there's so many, not because they intended for you to collect them all, but so that you at least stumble across enough so that this becomes a part of your playthrough without you having to seek it out. Wow, really doing some reverse psychology on us here.
Yeah, I don't know. They put a certain amount in the game, and Breath of the Wild literally had a reward for collecting them. It was a meme reward, but they want you to collect them all. Or at least, I don't know, they want to say, man, there's a ton of gameplay in this. There's 1,600 things to collect.
I think the best answer is neither Pat nor I will collect them all, so whether the reward is good or bad doesn't really affect us. But for those of you who are committed, I sure hope it's something better and something... yeah, like Mateo has an unlimited battery. That would be really nice. That would be really, really great.
Yep. Master Cycle, I think that was a great reward for the DLC. Something like that, where it's like you can maybe fly in the sky for a very long time or something like that. Noxtel asks, how would you say the performance is compared to Breath of the Wild? I released a video like not even an hour ago, but it's very comparable to Breath of the Wild. I'll say that the new update 1.1 Tears of the Kingdom patch, I think, increases it a little bit more. The main sort of hiccups and performance issues I had was in the beginning area. So, the tutorial area where you get all the powers. But the game doesn't run worse than Breath of the Wild, let's just say that. But we are still playing on a Nintendo Switch. And I'm interested to see if Nintendo will bring this game to the next console. Do you think that's a possibility at all? Maybe like a Legendary Edition with all the DLC and...
Well, I think that the games run on both, so I don't think that they would re-release it. I think they would just say, pop your cartridge into the Super Switch and it'll run at 4K. I mean, I think they will absolutely market it, whatever the new console is, whether I'm right or wrong. Like, I think they'll absolutely market Tears of the Kingdom as something to get, with that system. But I guess a lot of it just depends on when it comes out. If it's this year, early next year, absolutely. If it's not till 2025 or something for some strange reason, then maybe not. That's a good one as well. Who was that said that? Shaylin says an exclusive Korok dungeon would be a great reward. Yeah, that doesn't break the game, but that's like a nice extra piece of content. I like that.
Or like something fun. Like, can we have fun things back in games? Like, imagine like a Hestu costume where you can just run around.
Like big head code.
Like yeah, something like that. No spoilers, but are you pleased with the story so far? Asked Wavy. So I have done one major thing, the equivalent of a divine beast in Breath of the Wild, I would say. The story is great. I want to talk about it so bad, and we will next episode. I promise. The boss was amazing, and I said in my video today, the getting to this place was one of the best experiences ever. It was challenging. I didn't know what to do. There's no guides anywhere. The game, it's brand new, so the boss was great. It was just, but you're talking about the story. The story was awesome, and a lot of people have been asking me, should I play Breath of the Wild before I play this game? Honestly, if you can at this point, it's very close to launch, but I would say yes. It does add another layer of sort of, you'll get more out of it, On its own, it's great,
What
but
about
there
that
are
video Nintendo put out? It's like 6 minutes and 50 seconds recapping the story so
Go
far.
watch that. Go watch that. If you're like in the middle of a Breath of the Wild playthrough, I
Okay.
would definitely, go for it. But the story is great. Again, there's new characters that are just such a breath of fresh air, and I think a lot of you guys are gonna like them.
Interesting. I'm curious what characters you're loving, because we've seen quite a few in the trailers. We have the Zonai people, or what we think are the Zonai people. We have obviously that crazy Zelda character always getting herself in trouble. Um, Link still won't speak, so I don't know how much we can call him a character. Uh, yeah, we're not going to answer these questions about like major quest lines or major things like that.
Hmm.
Still want to keep the game as under wraps as possible. A guy in my chat is saying lies when you say that the characters in the story are exciting. According to him, the story is not exciting.
Weird. That's odd. I feel like the story there's meaning to it. It's like kind of like the one that I did. There's a big underdog sort of thing to it. It's like
Yeah,
kind
I
of
was
passing the torch.
from what I've heard and what I've seen, even the setup from the trailers, it does seem like it's. I don't know. It seems like there is a bigger emphasis on lore and on story. And yeah, I mean, this isn't going to be The Last of Us. It's a Nintendo game, but I think for a Nintendo game, it seems like they are pushing in a pretty cool direction.
Yeah. Risky asks, what's your opinion on Tears of the Kingdom doesn't have full voice acting? So there is voice acting in this game. But it basically it's like a big voice acted scene, and then after that they do the typical Zelda thing where it's like this big voice acted thing, and then after that it's just like, ugh, and then they'll give you like dialogue and stuff. So it's not completely voice acted, but the voice acting is great here. I think it's better than Breath of the Wild. I mean, I think the performances were pretty good in Breath of the Wild. It wasn't anything crazy, but I think Tears of the Kingdom, the voices are good, characters are nice. I haven't played Elden Ring though.
Megan wants to know if there's different areas compared to Breath of the Wild, but with no spoilers. I think
All right,
by
what was
this,
it?
are there different areas in compared to Breath of the Wild, but like answer with no spoilers. I think the Sky Islands alone count as new areas, right? So yeah, there are
Yeah, there's
definitely
different
different
areas.
areas. Yeah.
There's different areas. There's updated areas too. So that's another reason to play Breath of the Wild. You might have a favorite area on the map or town, and that has likely been updated where it's not even the same thing anymore.
Has this been publicly shown? Do you know how does your game save from Breath of the Wild affect your Tears of the Kingdom? Has that been shown? Where?
Not officially, but
Okay.
it's not really a big deal. It's
No,
actually more of an exciting thing.
I think you'd
So
want to know. Yeah.
yeah, so if you have a Breath of the Wild save, you're gonna want to play Tears of the Kingdom on that because two things will transfer: your horses, which I thought was interesting. So you'll have your same horses and names and stamina or whatever. And the second thing is, if you beat the champion's ballad, you get like a photo that transfers over. So it's more
Animal
like a
Crossing?
trophy.
What is this? A friendship portrait?
So it's like a trophy, sort of. So I know I made a video like this. You need to do this before Tears of the Kingdom. You should be playing it on the same, or like transfer your data from Breath of the Wild. And get amiibos, Zach. Do you think these amiibos are going to be tough to get? They're re-releasing pretty much all
Yeah,
of them.
they're bringing a bunch out. I don't feel like amiibo are as coveted or as difficult as they used to be. There was a time where like if you didn't pre-order it, you were going to be out of luck. But I feel like it's not the case. And they're only really is there only just one new Tears of the Kingdom amiibo?
There's one new Tears of the Kingdom
Okay.
amiibo, yeah.
But the old ones
But
do something, and it's what it's paraglider skins.
yep. So you can find. Actually, this is still a mystery to me, but you can find different sort of fabrics for your. And I think you have to craft a new one. I don't know, but yeah, if you scan an amiibo, and Nintendo has shown this already, but yeah. So if you scan in the Majora's Mask amiibo, you'll get the Majora's Mask glider. So I get the amiibos while you can. I also said that you can get the amiibo cards. They sell those on Amazon too. That's an option, I guess. But you're gonna want them. It's just a cool unlockable. It's a skin basically.
Yeah. This is an interesting question. Do you think there are some people that will think Breath of the Wild is better than Tears of the Kingdom?
No.
No?
I really don't.
There's no way to prefer like those powers, stasis, and
the only thing that I could really see Breath of the Wild having an edge on is like the unique story. You know, obviously Divine Beast, that's not the same. Breath of the Wild seems more chill though. I will give it that. It seems more empty. You feel like alone in Breath of the Wild. But I really can't see a world where someone's like, I'm gonna play Breath of the Wild instead. Like, I don't even know why you would say that. But nostalgia, I don't know.
Yeah, nostalgia, or just the first time of it being open world. Like there is something about like, okay, taking Zelda from Twilight Princess to or Skyward Sword to Breath of the Wild is like that's a huge change, a huge evolution where maybe this doesn't feel as big of a difference. Yeah, I think Amiibo, I don't know. I feel like Nintendo is sort of going to phase Amiibo out pretty soon if they can. I feel like they're making less and less. They never really did what I thought they should have done with Amiibo, which is use them as DLC, where instead of buying a scratch off card, you buy an Amiibo, and so you're getting a cool figure, but you're also getting DLC. I know that they still have use in just about every big first party game, but I do feel like, I don't know. I think there will definitely come a point where they're just done.
They seem to be keeping them around though. Like Pikmin 4 didn't get a new one, right?
Not so far.
I don't think so.
No,
that's coming.
Is that a thing? Is there a Pikmin 4 amiibo?
I don't know. Some people are saying in my chat like, "Oh, is Breath of the Wild a bad game now?" Absolutely not. But all I'm saying is that the elements in Breath of the Wild that you love have been enhanced.
Yeah.
The world is better. The combat is better. There's more enemies, more weapons, more armor. There's more powers. There's more story. Breath of the Wild is amazing. Right now, it's my number 2 game of all time. I think after this game comes out, it'll slide down to 3.
Yeah.
But it's still a amazing game, and everyone needs to play it. But it's very tough to play. What we were saying is it's very tough to play Tears of the Kingdom and prefer Breath of the Wild. It just seems like a expanded, more fleshed out game. Like it feels like their original, like if they had an original vision, it's probably Tears of the Kingdom, I think.
Interesting. Yeah, there's thus far no Pikmin 4 amiibo, but I would not be surprised if they do have the little puppy dog become an amiibo.
Oh,
that just seems like something that would eventually, it would become an amiibo. A lot of people asking about like the Ganon stuff and Ganondorf fights. Pat is not there at all, and we wouldn't be able to talk about that even if he was. So nothing.
Yeah, basically, I did one of the 5, I think 4 or 5 major story parts of the game, and the other time that I've spent has just been kind of exploring. And again, like what I like to do in Breath of the Wild is find all the towers and unlock the map. So there are towers in Tears of the Kingdom. They act differently though. I'll just stay away from that. But they still uncover the map. There's a lot of reused gameplay mechanics from Breath of the Wild, but I feel like you kind of have to.
It is a sequel. Like, for the ways that makes it more exciting with the story continuing over, for the ways that maybe makes it worse with the reused assets or whatnot, or reused mechanics, it is a sequel. Yes, someone said it's a good like Mario Galaxy 1 versus Galaxy 2 situation where Galaxy 2 is the better game, but Galaxy 1 did it first, so maybe some people prefer their first.
Which is interesting because I think I prefer Galaxy 1
okay.
over Galaxy 2. But yeah. But it's just again, it's like different bosses and characters. Like I still think some people might for some reason be like, I love Thunderblight Ganon. He's my favorite. I love that fight.
You cannot. There's not a person out here that can love Thunderblight Ganon. I don't think that's a thing. I don't think. I would hope, in ways like that, I would hope that it's unquestionably Tears of the Kingdom. Like it needs to be that. I mean, TBD, I guess, but it really does need to be that.
Has the whole thing, I don't know what's been confirmed or not anymore. I'm so deep into like this game, but the whole thing where we're seeing Sidon fighting with us, that hasn't been confirmed, right?
No, I mean we have the trailer shot that you're referring to, but how that functions
Yeah.
in is not. No.
All I can say, there's no multiplayer.
Yeah.
There's no, you can't like pick up a Joy-Con and start fighting, but yeah, that mechanic is pretty cool. I won't go into that.
Yeah, people asking about like specific characters. No, we're not gonna go over that at all.
Oh yeah, so Jessica says the whistle running. So do you know about whistle running in Breath of the Wild? Where you can like hold down the whistle and then like tap B to run basically forever without using stamina. You can't do that. You can't do that in Tears of the Kingdom. Yeah. So that's a little like
They
patch thing, I
removed
guess.
the fun.
Yep, that is gone. Yeah. Seems to be more recipes too.
Okay.
Cooking I've done a little bit of. I think a lot of people are going to like, there's a portable cooking pot that you can pretty much just summon anywhere.
Beautiful.
So if you're like in the middle of nowhere and you don't have a lot of meals, you can only cook one dish in it, but it's super helpful so far.
Got any impressions about the music? A couple of people asked how the music is so far.
Oh, the music is fantastic. I know a lot of people just listen to video game music in their spare time. I want the vinyl or whatever. Dude, this music is fantastic. There's some Breath of the Wild remixes in here. There's some old music that's been remixed.
I love the trailer musics. I think, or songs, soundtracks, whatever. So if they continue that, I think that's. I saw this interesting article, and maybe we can wrap on this topic about how Zelda was so much about music in the Ocarina, Wind Waker, all those eras, and then they kind of have gone away from that. And I did feel a little type of way. I was like, man, I kind of wish there was like a musical instrument that allows you to manipulate the world, because for a while that was a really neat mechanic that they put in there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I will say that music seems to be a bigger deal in this game. There's a lot more overworld music that I wasn't really preparing for. I know Breath of the Wild had like your little piano cues, and your like, I don't know, it was like glimpses of music.
Right.
There's actually overworld music now. Like, depending on which area you're in, caves have a different song. Just like different regions, of course, have more overworld music. So, and this goes back to what I was saying about Breath of the Wild. Still a great game, yes, but it's just improved on the music is better.
Right.
It's great, Zach. I want you to play it. So
I'm very excited. Everybody is very excited. We have only a couple days to wait. Make sure to follow both NintenTalk and Switch Force for a ton of coverage. I'm sure that we will both have a just massive amount of different types of videos depending on what you're looking for, what kind of tips or tricks, what kind of guides, what kind of information you want. But we will not be posting, spoilers or pictures of the final boss or anything like that. So you don't have to worry about that.
Yeah.
But I think we go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, if you want a more in-depth, slightly spoiler experience, I did just release a video.
Check that out.
But there is spoiler warning, because of just different things that I say. I don't know, like the number of caves and number of Koroks. Like, I don't really think that's a spoiler as much as like, how does Ganon fight? Where do you find Ganon?
Yeah.
So
it's more of a feature of like, okay, there's Korok seeds to collect, and there's cave. I mean, they've shown off caves, so that's not anything. But yeah, I think we got to just about everything we could without spoilers, so that's a good.
Oh wait, I wanted to talk about one more thing. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Zach's literally trying. I wanted to talk a little bit about the Treehouse event.
Okay. Yeah.
Because so they announced the Treehouse event, and that comes out the night before launch.
Right.
Can we just get a show of hands or whatever? Like, who's gonna watch that? Zach, that's a weird thing to do.
It is a weird thing. Before. I guess it's just some get people hyped while they're playing. I mean, I don't know if you're converting anyone at the last hour like that. Like, oh, this. To me, it just seems more of like a fan servicey type, wait with us type show. I don't think I saw some people say like, oh, I'm not going to spoil things right before the game comes out, but I think they're going to have a very like. They're going to have someone on Treehouse like, oh, this is how you use Ultra Hand. Here, let's build a raft. Like, I don't think it's going to be, well, this is the, the 7th boss of the game or something, something like that. So.
Yeah. So some people are asking, Treehouse is basically Nintendo employees playing the game,
Right.
answering questions in the chat. They used to do it a lot for like E3 and stuff. It's basically like Nintendo is controlling what they're showing and stuff. But
Yeah.
you got to imagine you're going to see like, maybe it's just a showcase of the power. Maybe it's like an extended preview, but seems weird. People are already going to have the game like in Australia and stuff. Like this is already going to be out. So I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing, but I just don't know how many people are like, you know what? I'm good. I'll wait a couple more hours. And
I think in their head, they're like, the game's not out. All these people are waiting. We'll have this huge viewership. Like you said, not realizing that their Australia counterparts already have it. But I do think it is like just like a celebratory thing because of, this is their biggest release of the Switch generation. They won't top it. And I think because of Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom becomes just, I don't know if even the next Zelda has the same level of anticipation as this. But yeah, we will find out soon. You want to watch the Treehouse, you can. You can watch us instead. That might be a better idea. I know I will have videos by the time that's out, so you can watch me and Pat instead, like you watched us for this podcast. Next one will be interesting. We will have a lot more to say, and hopefully a lot of you will have a lot more to say as well. Get some good hours in before we talk to you next time. Until that time, though, everybody, make sure you have a good week. Past that time, I don't know. Go for a run, binge Gilmore Girls. I don't know. Do something fun out there. And next time we talk, we'll all play Tears of the Kingdom. So it's a good week, maybe the best week. Thanks for watching, everybody. Check out NintenTalk and Switch Force. And until next time, Switch Force out.
See ya.